Okay, Oliver is not coming.
Let me look for.
Yes, we can start.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much for joining us on the third edition Africa and the youth in the whole world, the youth across the length and breadth of the world, especially in this COVID era. Now, this is the third series. The first one happened and had a host of dignitaries being hosted successfully. The second one was also hosted successfully and focused on the impact of the pandemic on education here in Ghana, in Africa, and across the length and breadth of the world as well. Now, this is the third series, and it's that expanding the youth innovation space. So in this particular session, we're going to have panelists who are well versed in the field of technology and innovation to speak to us. Well, we'll still have the opportunity to ask them questions when the time comes up, but they're going to speak to us in their various fields of technology and innovation, and how all of us, those of us who are watching and everybody else, can be able to use technology and innovation to mitigate the impact of COVID-19 now and hereafter. So this is going to be a very interactive session. And before I introduce my first guest, I'll quickly acknowledge the dignitaries that we have here present who are going to speak to us as a panelist and the other dignitaries. Let me also acknowledge that this event is being hosted by UNDP Ghana. I would, in the course of time, acknowledge the facilitators as well. But when I introduce you, please give us a thumbs up or give us a wave. Let's be able to acknowledge you properly. In this session is Zelki Hollander, who is the Deputy Resident Representative of UNDP. He will be speaking to us when I introduce him. We also have Dr. Gordon Kwesi Adumja. Dr. Gordon Kwesi Adumja is Associate Professor of Entrepreneurship and Innovation at Ashesi University. Doctor, please let's acknowledge you. We have Zuleiha Dubia Abdullah, who is a co-founder of Diva Lopa. Yes, very well. Let's acknowledge you properly. And then Joshua Opuku Ajiman is the president of Internet of Things Network Hub, IoT Network Hub Africa. Joshua, thank you very much for joining us as well. We have Chineyungwa Okoro Unu. Yes, we can see you as well. Thank you very much for joining us. And we have Dr. Frederick Mugisha, who is Economic Advisor to UNDP. Doc, let's acknowledge you as well. We are still trying to get Mr. Oliver Boachi, who will be joining us pretty shortly. He is a special advisor to the Minister of Environment, Science, Technology, and Innovation. He will be joining us in the course of time. He will be speaking to us as well. But I introduced to you earlier that this third series, or the whole event, is being hosted by UNDP. So we'll have a quick introduction to this whole program by the Deputy Resident Representative of UNDP, Zelki Hollander. Please let's welcome Zelki Hollander to introduce this UN Youth Impact Series for us. So Zelki, you have the time now.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to this third session, as you said, of the Youth Impact Series on the impact of COVID-19 on young people. And for those of you who have not been able to participate in any of the previous ones, the UN in Ghana launched this series in May with the aim to increase young people's awareness on prevention, protection, response, and coping mechanisms of COVID-19 in recognition of the leadership role young people can and are already playing in the global and African response to the pandemic. And we would like to highlight specific innovative solutions created for and by and with young people. As mentioned before, today is the third session already. And as UNDP, we are very pleased to be hosting on this theme of expanding the youth innovation space. We've seen this pandemic bring out the creativity and ingenuity of young people for responses, not only to reduce the negative impact of the pandemic and to address the immediate needs, but also to create longer-term opportunities. So today we want to hear from each other, learn and engage and then talk and about how we can expand and scale up solutions for sustainable development in Ghana and the continent. So I'm really excited about the panel that we have, and I'm sure their contributions will spark an interesting dialogue amongst us in the next hour and beyond. And I would really like to encourage you to participate actively, post questions, ask questions, share your thoughts, as this conversation is meant to inform what we as UN system are going to be doing in the coming months and what policy decisions can be taken as well. So on this note, again, Akwaba, and I wish you all a fruitful conversation. Thank you.
Yeah, so thank you very much, Zilki. So Akwaba is a tree word here in Ghana, which is used to welcome people from wherever they are coming. So Akwaba, to everybody who is just joined us, this is the Youth Impact Series, Expanding the Youth Innovation Space, the third series. And we are going to have question and answers at the end of the session. So please pay particular attention to each of our presenters here this afternoon and jot your questions if you have any. And please join the poll as well if you haven't filled in the poll. We would have the results posted here on the platform as well. So we begin this afternoon's session with one very important person who is a professor of entrepreneurship and innovation. He's done a lot, quite a lot in the field of innovation, in the person of Dr. Gordon Kwesi Adumja. Now he is to speak to us on how academia is supporting the expansion of the youth innovation space. So for the next 5 minutes, Dr. Gordon Kwesi Adumja will be speaking to us. Let's please pay particular attention and listen to him. Jot your questions. Doctor, please, you have the mic now.
Okay. Thank you, Kwesi. Can you hear me? Okay. I can't get any feedback. Kwesi, can you hear me?
Doc, yeah. We can hear you. Yes, Doc, okay, I can hear
wonderful.
You. All of us can hear you.
All right, thank you so much. Well, good afternoon, everybody. And I'm sure there are people from different time zones as well. So maybe good morning or much later in the afternoon. It's great to be speaking to you today about this topic of how academia can help in the expansion of the youth innovation space. As introduced already, I'm an associate professor at Ashesi University. So I'm going to be talking about some of the things we do at Ashesi University to support the innovation space and also sort of acknowledge some of the partners we've worked with and the role that we see other players play in the space. So I want to start off with the big picture, which is the concept of the triple helix model, right? So if you've seen this before, it puts academia, industry, and government together in sort of a triple connection model. And these three entities are what are thought to be the champions of innovation in any economy, right? So if you think of the innovation space, then one way to think about it is to think about how government works with industry, works with academia, and on to create opportunities for innovation, to commercialize innovation, to implement innovation into businesses, into civil society, into the national discourse. So that's a good model to have in mind. So when I talk about the role of academia, I want to look at it from the perspective of how academia supports industry and how academia supports government in developing new spaces for innovation, in contributing technology and skills and human capital to innovation in industry and in government and in civil society. So that's how I want to look at it. So if you take a typical university sort of setup, we train people, we improve on their skills. So skill set and mindset, right? We give them skill set and also mindset. So we're talking about innovation mindset, so that they can, have energy and courage to attack and also solve problems. At Ashesi, our mission is to educate ethical entrepreneurial leaders with the courage to transform Africa. So what we're doing there is that we're not only training in skill set, but we're also working on mindset. You talk to a lot of young people, and when you talk about problems, the first thing they say is if the government can, right? And we want to sort of have them see the power in them to take some of these problems head on, not maybe in large scale, but in ways in which they can, which will then enjoin other people, which will then encourage other people to help them to pursue these ideas. So when we do, what we do is that we introduce entrepreneurship to all of our first years, all of our freshmen. And it's quite unique, but a lot of universities are also doing that. We're seeing entrepreneurship programs being sort of becoming one of the fundamental courses in a lot of universities. And what that does then is that it helps students to sort of encounter problems, explore them, look at solutions, and then look at potential business models for some of these solutions, and then explore them as entrepreneurs or as employees in companies that they join later. You know, so that is one strong way in which academia provides and supports innovation in industry and in government, right? By training people in mindset and skill set so that they can explore problems. They will have the courage and the determination and the confidence to explore problems that can, you know, lead to solutions that industry and government can use. Right. Another way, another way, I think I have what, 3 minutes? Another way,
just 2 minutes.
2 minutes, okay, great.
2 minutes, yes.
So another way is basic research. So if you take any university campus with labs, with faculty who are working on research, with research grants and so forth, there are a lot of new technologies that are being developed, right? Master's students, PhD students. And so there is a huge potential to look at how to commercialize some of this work, and again, in industry and in government. It's one of the places where we're lacking a little bit, right? So people do their master's thesis. Doesn't matter how creative the solution is, it just ends up on the shelf and they move on. So finding new ways in which we can commercialize some of these ideas in industry. One way to do it is to have some of these concepts be seeded from industry, right? So have students working with companies for their thesis projects. You have students working with companies for their term projects and so forth, so that the problems are real world problems, and there is an able and willing partner to take the solution forward, right? If you set those conditions at the beginning, then it's a lot easier to see some of these solutions in implementation, if you will.
Right.
Yeah.
So that does it. That rounds it up for us. But thank you very much. That was Dr. Kwesi Adumja telling us about how Ashesi University does it, placing people with the industries to have hands-on experience, and not just the theoretical experience in the classrooms, and not also teaching them just a skill set, but also looking at their mindset, the mindset of the people and how they go into the marketplace. So if you just joined in, this is the third Youth Impact Series, which is focusing on expanding the youth innovation space here in Ghana, Africa, and the whole world. We would have our next speaker who just joined us. Let me quickly introductions. He has not joined yet. He's in the person of Mr. Oliver Boachi, the Special Advisor to the Minister of Environment, Science, Technology, and Innovation. Mr. Boachi, can you wave us? Let's see if you can hear me. My name as well is Kwesi.
I'm here. Hello?
Right, so as I was introducing, Mr. Boachi, if you can hear me, can you please wave us? Let's see you. You'll just take us along with the next presentation, and you're presenting on the policy perspective of expanding the youth innovation space. You're welcome to the platform as well. This is the Youth Impact Series, the third edition, which is focusing on expanding the youth innovation space. So Mr. Boachi, all of us are all ears listening to you. Kindly take us along.
Okay. Thank you so much.
You have 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Free. and want to extend a warm welcome to everybody who has managed to join us today. Now, COVID-19 has really taught us a lot of very useful lessons. Now, two among those lessons are: one, every nation needs to be prepared to rely on itself and reduce their dependence on other countries. Number two, Ghana has a great deal of talent. Now, what is missing in our country are the policies, the programs and resources that are required to harness the talent of Ghanaians, particularly the youth, by empowering them to unleash these talents for national development. That is why the government of Ghana has initiated a policy to place science, technology, and innovation at the center of the country's socio-economic development, and to make STI a fulcrum around which our national development revolves. Now, MESTI has developed a strategic framework to strengthen Ghana's science, technology, and innovation system. This framework is actually based on 7 strategic pillars. And for the purpose of today's program, I'll just mention 4 of those pillars. Pillar number 3, within that 7-pillar strategy, is the establishment of a national coordinating agency for research and innovation using the Ghana Innovation and Research Commercialization Center as a base. Now, the mandate is to fund and develop the national innovation ecosystem based on a partnership between government and research institutions, including academia, and then the private sector, as the first presenter just finished saying, and then to promote commercialization of research output and innovation. Now, pillar number 4 is based on the establishment of Innovation and Research Fund to ensure that there is adequate funding for research and innovation and the development of the nation's STI system. Pillar number 5 is the promotion and support of teaching and learning of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, or what we call STEM, at all levels of the nation's educational system. And then pillar number 7 is a focus on what we call strategic technology areas and the establishment of strategic technology centers under the Ghana Innovation and Research Commercialization Center. Now, under pillar number 3, MESTI is collaborating with other ministries such as the Ministry of Trade and Industry, Ministry of Food and Agriculture, Ministry of Finance and Economic Planning, and the Ministry of Business Development, and then the Ministry of Communications, in establishing this, what we call the GEC Center. And it's the partnership between government, the public research institutions, academia, and the private sector that I just mentioned, and which our first presenter also mentioned. The GEC Center partners will be acting as collaborators to drive and grow research and innovation and support the transformation of research output and innovation into industrial products and services. The GEC Center will also provide support for and strengthen the innovation ecosystem in Ghana. Now, the GEC Center is a platform for a sustainable engagement among the above stakeholders. It's an establishment of strategic technology centers at appropriate locations within the country to serve as centers for skills training, first stage commercialization, that is piloting and prototyping, and consultancy for startups and SMEs. And then the provision of guidance and support services that will help researchers and innovators to avoid the pitfalls that are associated with what we call the valley of death, that is within the process of commercialization. The GEC Center will also strengthen the innovation ecosystem in Ghana by providing support services for researchers in the following areas: intellectual property rights management, facilitation of research collaboration with the private sector, piloting of research output, matching of research projects with investors and venture capitals, startup incubation, development of business plans, entrepreneurship training, and consultancy for strategic communications and marketing. Now, let me just mention the strategic technology areas that we are talking about.
Yes, you can round up on that for me.
Sure. Under Pillar 7 is the concept of strategic technology areas and strategic technology centers. The identification and classification of these strategic technology areas are based on these things, that Ghana doesn't have unlimited resources. So we are focusing our attention on 8 strategic technology areas: agric and food processing, environment, climate change and waste management, manufacturing, information and communications technology, renewable energy, oil and gas, health and pharmaceuticals, and mining and minerals processing. And the strategic technology centers are a series of well-equipped physical facilities where businesses, scientists, engineers, and innovators will work together to pilot, prototype, and scale up research output and innovations that are identified to have market potential.
All right, so Mr. Wache, if you can hear me.
Developed for that. Yes.
Yes, if you can hear me, we get. I would have to stop you here respectfully. We get an understanding of the plans by government, not even plans, the activities by government so far to support youth in innovation and entrepreneurship. I'm sure we'll have time for you in the question and answer session, further detail what we've been talking about. Let me acknowledge the presence of Ni Ujolape, the country director of UNFPA. Please, if you are here, kindly raise your hand. Let's acknowledge you properly. We have the facilitators as well that I'm going to introduce. Yes, so Ni is there with the UNFPA background. All participants can see him from there. So there is a poll that we put up. We have said that this conversation is not about the panelists only and not about the guests only, but about everybody who is watching us now and even beyond. So we put up a poll for people to share what they think, asking questions about the youth innovation space, whether they think it's wide enough, whether you who is participating thinks it's relatively wide and open, or what at all do you think? We are going to put up the results of the poll here now before we get to the next speaker. So if we can have the poll, see what's happened with it. We want the first poll. How would you describe the current space for youth innovation? Yes, we have the options there. We will be waiting for the results. So whilst we wait for the results of the poll to announce to everyone, we are going to still have 3 more panelists to talk to us about young innovators' perspectives of youth innovation space from different perspectives, from the female perspective, from the male perspective, and all of that. So let me remind you that we still have Joshua Opukwajiman on the platform. We have Okoro Onu on the platform as well, and we have the co-founder for Diva Lopa here on the platform as well. We're trying to see if we can have the poll, the results of the poll. Whilst we wait for it, let's prepare ourselves for the next presenter. So the next presenter will be taking us through young innovators' perspectives on youth innovation space. And she's in the person of co-founder for Diva Lopa, Zayla Dubia Abdullah. So right after the results of the poll is seen here, we would just welcome her and get the ball rolling with her. Right. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, if you're here, please join me. Welcome. Okay, I can see the results of the poll now. The poll was, how would you describe the current space for youth innovation? And I hope everyone can see the poll. So 5% of us think the space is very wide and open. It's relative to whichever country that you took the poll from, but we would largely base it on Ghana here. 43% says relatively wide and open. So 43 out of 100 people think the space it's relatively wide enough for people to operate in. 47%, that's the highest among the lot, says it is not wide and open. And then 6% think it does not exist at all. So there is no space for people to operate within the space of entrepreneurship, innovation, to set themselves up, employ more people, get the youth empowered. It means, Mr. Boache, if you're watching, government has a lot of work to do when it comes to this space. I'm sure during the question and answers, we'll still have some more questions for you. But let me now welcome the co-founder for Developer. She's in the person of Zuhaila Dubia Abdullah. Please join me, welcome Zuhaila, to talk to us about young innovators' perspectives on youth innovations. Zuhaila, the
Thank you
platform is
very
yours
much,
now.
Tracy. Good day, everyone. I'm Zuhaila Dubia Abdullah, the co-founder for Developer. A developer is a social enterprise that empowers females in the northern region to take up careers in tech by providing training and mentorship. I'm very honored to be sharing my experience and insights on the youth empowerment this afternoon. The youth innovation space, from my perspective, especially coming from the northern part of Ghana, it's I think it's going on a very slow pace, because especially ladies, I'm going to speak more on ladies because we do more training for ladies and we have more interactions and experiences from them. The level of education for ladies in the northern region, it's quite difficult, because the ladies up there mostly are influenced to believe that at some point they are going to get married. And so there's no need they going further in education or even building capacity or building their skill. They feel at a point they're going to get married, so why bother trying to add more capacity to yourself? And this is also, and if you are an outlier in the northern part of Ghana and you are able to even go through the education system as a lady, and you get to a point where you have your degree, most of the songs you hear people singing is you have to study hard and be able to pass your exams to get a GPA to come out and go for a job. So the system we find ourselves is people are not trained, or we are not being tutored to be able to come up with innovative ideas or creative ideas. It's like the youth is groomed to think that if you go to school and you study, when you come out, you get a job. And so when we come out and then we get jobs and we don't find jobs, you realize that we are sitting there waiting for the government to provide jobs for us because we've not been trained in a way to think about creative ideas and creative solutions. And that's why I'm very happy Mr. Oliver mentioned some of the policies that the government are going to come up with to help us be able to groom the younger generations to understand that, look, when you finish school, even though you might be able to get a job at some point, but if you are not able to get a job, you have to consider looking out for a problem in your locality or even community and come up with like creative ideas to be able to solve that particular problem. And also, I think another bottleneck that affects the youth and innovation in Ghana is also because we have not created an enabling environment to make people be able to take risk. So for instance, in a lady's perspective where you are supposed to get married at a point, let's say you have an idea and you're able to push through to be able to come to build a particular, maybe let's say a company, and then it ends up failing. You'd realize that you get a lot of critics from people. You were supposed to be concentrating on other things or going to do something better than coming to waste your time to try and grow this particular thing, and it even ended or it even failed. So we are not creating an enabling environment for people to be able to follow through with their passions or maybe ideas. And even if it fails, let them know that, look, even though this failed, you can do it this way. And so we have to also look at that. And also, I'm glad Mr. Oliver mentioned, because my next point was also going to talk about the inadequate policies by the government to be able to help us growing up in school, to be able to come, like to pick up, let's say, entrepreneurship ideas. Like for instance, having a policy fund so that even when you're in the university and you're able to come up with an innovative idea, there should be a way where you can apply and get funding to start that particular venture even though you are in school. Like Silicon Valley does in the United States, you realize that it creates an enabling environment no matter your educational background or no matter where you are on the educational level, the ladder, you can come up with an idea and get like a supportive community to be able to help you. And then the last one is talking about ladies. I think that one of the bottlenecks with we ladies is we have to come up with an empowerment solution or a community of ladies, because personally, when I was growing up, the reason why I took up STEM was not because I saw a lady in the STEM image. It was like I just did it because I wanted to be a different. It was not up to university that I realized that I had women I could look up to be able to follow passion and be able to create as a woman. And so I think that this bottleneck is some of the things we have to really concentrate on, especially creating an enabling environment or a community where the younger generation of youth, especially the women, can look up and see ladies like Chichi doing awesome and be like
yourself
okay,
as well.
Yes, like myself, and be like, oh, if she's there, okay, I can also do this by following her footsteps or by learning from her.
Right. So thank you very much. A very brilliant presentation there by Dubia. She's a co-founder of Developer. So Developer, she told us what exactly they do and how they're empowering the young women, especially in the northern part of our country. We all accept and know how that part is impoverished and the kind of need and support which is supposed to be geared towards that part of the country. We'll still come back with some questions. We are getting a lot of questions as of now, especially to you, Mr. Oliver Boachi. But whilst we prepare for our next presenter, let's take the second poll and see what people also think about the innovation space. So the question was, what are the most critical challenges that must be addressed to make youth innovation more attractive? So in our country here, for example, in Ghana, what do you think are the most critical or very important things that must be looked at that is challenging to the youth of Ghana in becoming innovative, in becoming entrepreneurs, in becoming who they want to become? And we have the points of mindset shifts to encourage creativity, innovative funding opportunities, mentorship, coaching, as Dubia mentioned, innovation centers and incubation centers, that's the environment provided for these young ones, as she mentioned as well, access to disruptive skills and technologies and over-dependence on imports. So we are going to see the results of this poll in a short while. Now, whilst we prepare for the results of this poll, we'll prepare for our next presenter as well. And he is the president of Internet of Things Network Hub, IoT Network Hub Africa. He is in the person of Joshua Opoku Ajiman. He is also going to take the same topic, which was delivered by Dubia, in a different perspective. And so we'll see. Well, the poll is on now. So the question was, what are the three most critical challenges that must be addressed to make youth innovation more attractive? We have 58% mindset shifts to encourage creativity. Innovation funding opportunities had 59% of the people giving a thumbs up. And then mentorship, coaching, and networking is 68%. So far, 68% of us, that's the highest number of people among who took the poll, think that mentorship, coaching, and networking should be the most critical challenge that must be addressed. So after that, you have the innovative funding opportunities, that's 59, and then the mindset shift to encourage creativity came third, which is the 15. The rest followed. So you can see the poll as it is on the platform. Let me quickly run to Joshua Opoku Ajiman to take the same topic, which was delivered by Dubia, in a different perspective. So Joshua is the president, as I stated early on, of IoT Network Hub. Ladies and gentlemen, kindly join me welcome Joshua Opoku Ajiman. Joshua, the mic is yours now.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's an honor to be here to talk on innovation. I believe you can see my screen, right?
Yes.
Right. Yeah, we can see you we can see your presentation on the screen.
Okay. I have only 5 minutes, so I'm going to run very fast because innovation moves with speed. Right. So IoT Network Hub is a community of inventors, developers, coming together to explore emerging technologies to solve problems facing Africa. And the community has grown into over 7,000 plus in Ghana and Africa. We have about 10 chapters in Africa. And what basically sparked this whole community or revolution is one of the emerging technologies called the Internet of Things, which had to do with a combination of hardware and software that's going to generate trillions of data with devices and sensors that are going to be connected to the cloud, of which are going to make sense using an intelligence system like artificial intelligence and the rest. The future of IoT has been predicted that by 2025, we're going to have $3 to $6 trillion economic impact, according to McKinsey. And Gartner also reported that by 2020, we're going to have 300 billion in revenue generation from IoT, and we're going to have 25 billion to 200 billion devices connected to the internet. Intel also predicted that we're going to have 31 billion to 31 billion devices with 4 billion people connected to the internet. So on the average, by the end of this year, we should have 7 devices per person. So every person is going to have 7 devices to 8 connected to the internet. So I'm going to touch on innovation. I'm coming in from the perspective of an ecosystem. The role that we play, we try to work with individuals, hubs, policymakers. So I'm going to come from that perspective. So according to one of the greatest scientists of all time, he said, we cannot solve a problem by using the same kind of thinking we used when we created those problems. So it requires that we have to change our way of thinking. Innovation is a process of creating value by applying novel solutions to meaningful problems. And we look at the intersection between feasibility, desirability, viability, and that intersection is where innovation is always born. And innovation comes in different types, and the four main types are the incremental innovation, radical innovation, architectural innovation, and disruptive innovation. So if you look at the chart over there, we have on the x-axis the market and the y-axis the technology. So every innovation is either in existing market and existing technology, or existing markets and a new technology, which happens to be the architectural, or happens to be in the new technology with existing market, which is the disruptive, the kind of WhatsApp, Facebook, and then the rest. And then we look at radical innovation, which has to do with the invention of the automobile, the internet, the computers, and all these forms the innovations pillar. So we're going to look at some of the bottlenecks that we are facing, or we believe that innovators in Africa or Ghana are going through. So the track over there is how innovators are going through. And I coined these 5 categories from the choice of theory, which is survival. So sustainability, vision, purpose, leadership. Then looking at belonging, a sense of connection, collaboration, culture of innovators is something that is also a bottleneck. And the power. Innovators don't get motivated, empowered, and get recognized enough. So most of the innovation and invention die off. And then freedom, our mindsets, the fear of trying something outside the box, the fear of thinking different. We don't have that freedom in that space. And then fun, the enabling environment and resources and facilities to explore our creative imagination. We don't have that fun in that space. When it comes to policy shift, I think educational curriculum needs to change, or we need to have some sort of addition into it. We're looking at the 21st century and the kind of skills that are relevant for 21st century. We have to find ways to embed them. We're looking at creative thinking, problem solving, collaboration, teamwork, communication, and STEM education. So these are all things that are going to be relevant in the 21st century. We're also looking at is having innovation clubs in the campuses. I think it's something that could also help to drive the innovation space. And they have innovation challenge. We have the math and science quiz competition nationwide. Probably we could have innovations kind of thing to spark the interest of the young ones, and then do it yourself initiative. So we need to create an environment where people can feel like, when my things break, I don't need to throw it away and buy a new one. I can fix it myself. So we need that innovation labs and then initiative to empower people to be able to create that. And I think policies around that could also help. And then finally, investment. Unleashing creativity and innovation, according to the late Kofi Annan, he said, any society that does not succeed in tapping into the energy and creativity of it will be left behind. And these are the 4 pillars I think forms the innovation ecosystem. So we need the people, the skills, the right skill. We're looking at the 21st century skills needed to stay relevant, leadership, accountability, and recognition. Then we look at the policy part, the strategy, measures, and governance. Then the process, experimentation, the facilitation, the technologies. If we're able to put all these four together in a harmonized synergy, then I think we can create the innovation ecosystem that can produce products and industries that will change our continent. To end my presentation, Kofi and I also say that young people should be at the forefront of global change and innovation. Empowered, they can be key agents to development and peace. I'll bring my presentation to an end. Thank you. We had a number of works around the COVID-19, and I will share links on the chat for you to see some of the pictures and videos of the products, our innovative products that we came up with within a short possible time when COVID-19 struck Ghana. I don't know if I still have more time or my time is up.
Well, I can give you 1 more minute if.
Okay, so then I'll touch more on this part. This is a challenge I've been facing myself, the community and my whole membership as a whole, over 5,000 members in Ghana, chapters in all the regions in Ghana. We started a model here in Ghana, trying to build a community where we can have the drive to build solutions, on which we built a number of solutions through this intervention. And when it became successful in Ghana, we tried to expand it to all the 16 regions in Ghana and other African countries. But my main challenge is sustainability, the survival. No matter all the things we put in place, if we don't have the sustainability, vision and purpose or sense of direction as a country, how innovative we want our country to be, we're still going to crash. So survival is very, very important. And the fun part, the enabling environment, where every kid would like to build something cool, anything we can imagine, we can build them. So these are the things that I really stress much on, the survival and then the environment for people to be innovative. I believe everybody is innovative and creative, but along the way, we call those abilities. So having the enabling environment could also help us be creative once again. Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much, Joshua. So that was Joshua Opukwajiman, the president of IoT Hub Africa. You're getting a lot of questions on whether you'll be able to share the slides at the end of the session. I'm sure we'll get an answer during the question and answer session.
Sure.
And then we'll
that won't be a problem at all.
Right. We'll be asking you about whether you've had any contacts or partnerships with the ministry, Mbesti, to be precise, and other institutions that you can partner. We're looking at the kind of challenges you would have to go through as an entrepreneur, as an innovator, to be able to put yourself up. When we get to the question and answer session, we'll come to this point. So please note these ones down. And then Mr. Wache, then on you again, please note all the points down when we get to the question and answers. I'm sure you would have a lot of questions being bombarded on you. We actually getting a lot of them. We'll now have a look at our third poll. Let's see how that also went. The question was, what policy changes must happen to encourage an increase in youth innovation? And you are supposed to choose any of the three options that were given. We'll have a look at which of the options as given here was the most important for people as a policy change that is required to encourage the youth of our country, the youth of our continent, and the youth of the world to become more innovative. So whilst we wait for the results, we would also be preparing for our final presenter, who is the founder of Waste or Create Hub. Either you waste it or you create something out of the waste. So I'm sure it will be a very interesting presentation. It is also on the very same topic, young innovators' perspectives on of youth innovation space. And it's going to also come from a different perspective. So we've had a different perspective from Dubia, different one from Joshua, and then we're going to have another one from Okoro. If you just joined us on the platform, be reminded that this is the third edition of the Youth Impact Series. This particular one is focusing on expanding the youth innovation space. So we have the results of the poll now. 77% people think that review educational curricula to instill innovation. This point was particularly made by Dr. Gordon Kwesi Adumja in his presentation about the kind of curricula they are using at Ashesi University. So 77% of us who are participating in this whole thing that of all the points that we're given, we should review educational curricula to instill innovation. So we'll go to our final presenter for the day, as I mentioned earlier. And then when we are back, we'll now open the platform for the questions and answers that are coming in, and we'll engage our panelists on what they think or to answer the questions that we put up to them. So our next person is Chinenyewa Okuru Unu, who is the founder of Waste or Create. She's going to speak on young innovators' perspectives of innovation, youth innovation space. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me. Welcome, Okuru.
Hi,
yes, Okuru, the platform is yours
so
now.
much. Okay, can you all hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Awesome. Good afternoon, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be joining you all in this very important and interesting conversation. I must say that all of my fellow panelists have, hit the nail in the head with all of their contributions, especially Joshua, who I can relate personally to some of the challenges that he highlighted. So my name is Chinenyewa Okuru. I am the co-founder and managing director of the Waste or Create Hub. So the Waste or Create Hub is an inclusive innovation center that is focused on environmental sustainability as well as climate solutions. What we do is we educate, develop and design innovative solutions for the environment. This includes around education, prototyping and design, innovation and creativity, upcycling and recycling, waste separation, as well as renewable energy sources. The conversation around the youth perspective for innovation in Ghana is one that I've been very much concerned about. I mean, of course, as you can see with the pool, it doesn't lie. It states that it's not wide and it's not open. This is because there's so many challenges that we face. Moving from, of course, not limiting to mindset of people, and that goes back to our education system. And I think almost all of the speakers has highlighted that. We do not have a structured educational model that encourages young people to think innovation, especially from a very young age, and moving into even going into the university and all of that. Of course, unless you are someone who is driven by challenges in your communities and you see a potential solution in those challenges, then you see all of this entrepreneurship drive coming up, especially in university. Casey, can I go ahead? I think I went off for a moment.
Yes, we can go ahead.
Okay, great. So I was talking about the policy, and I think Mr. Oliver had highlighted some of the policies that the governments are putting in place. It's important that he's sharing this. For me, most of the policies he mentioned is like the first time I'm ever hearing those. And it's sad because these are policies that should be made available for every organization, institutions, innovator. You don't even have to be in the scope of even innovation and entrepreneurship to understand these policies. It should be made available. And that is where I will encourage that the ministry do more in sharing some of these policies with the young people, especially because they are the driving force for innovations in our communities and our society. Because if you as a young person are thinking about coming up with maybe a waste separation plant, building your own modular to develop something like that, and you realize that, of course, there's no policy based on what you can find, there is no policy, but with what I'm hearing, those policies exist. So that means there's a bridge in communication. So there have to be a fluent way at which young people can access information, especially when policies are being presented, or when those policies exist. Lastly, I will talk about, of course, capacity. One of the biggest challenge that we have in the innovation space is capacity. I saw with the I think the second to the last pool, that the biggest challenge for that doesn't make innovation attractive is mentorship, coaching, and networking. I don't think that is it. This is because when you think about capacity, it's based on the skill sets that you have. Most of the young people that we see are very innovative, but they lack the skills and capacities to be able to drive that innovation to a particular stage where it can scale and grow. So we need to focus on developing skills, either in business development, in technology, in advancing negotiation skills, communication skills. I mean, in terms of networking, there's some people you meet them, brilliant ideas, but afterwards you don't hear from them again. You send them an email, they don't even know how to respond to you. So we need to think about networking in a different form of developing skills on even how to network, not just presenting you with a networking platform, how to communicate, how to sell that idea, how to sell that innovation. Because even at Waste Equate Hub, some of the amazing young innovators that we've come to work with, most of the things that we teach them are basic, what I would call soft skills, which is, of course, how to communicate, how to present, how to share your idea, how to build your idea. Because it's very challenging. Trust me, when you see lots of so many social entrepreneurs, so many amazing innovators, their solutions are dying every day because, in quote unquote, they claim there's no enabling environment, but there is. You just don't know how to tap into this environment. So we need to share some of their solutions, share a lot of the opportunities. I know UNDP has been doing this a lot, having accelerator programs for young people to benefit and to grow. It's exciting, but I think they should also follow up to see how, after those trainings, how are they able to execute? Because the execution is the major gap that we have. And I'm sure Joshua or even Zuleha can attest to this. For them to be able to scale their innovations or do the amazing things that they do today, they have to dare themselves, right? They have to develop, they have to grow, they have to challenge themselves. And that is the conversation that we need to have. Capacity building is very, very important. And I don't mean capacity building generally. I mean capacity building in terms of skill. What skill do you have? Be it technology, be it business, what is that skill that you have? And that is a gap that we really, really need to bridge in our industry, in the space of innovation for young people.
Right. I mean, I'm so happy about the point of how you are able to build a network, the process of building the network, because you have a lot of people who think, let me go into a meeting to meet Zilke, for example, and take a number and be sending her messages, talking to her, maybe sending her emails about my idea and all that. And they think that's how it just is. But the process by which you network, the means by which you network, the platforms that you get, it's also very, very important. So thank you very much. That was Chinewa Okoro Unu, who is the founder of Waste or Create Hub, talking to us also on her perspective on young innovators' perspective of youth innovation space. We are going to have the last poll, and the results of it, we would read it out for everyone to see. The poll was, who do you see as the key players in the area of innovation? It's a multiple choice question, so you have the opportunity to choose a number of them. So we'll see the results of it very soon. But whilst we wait for the results, please be minded that we'll run over. We stipulated an hour for this episode or this edition, but it's so exciting. So we'll run over just a bit. Kindly indulge us. Let's hold you up a bit here, and we'll try as much as possible to close as early as possible. So we're waiting for the results. Be also reminded that there would obviously be scammers around, people who would want to promote their pages, people who would want to do things with this page. This is being hosted by the UNDP officially. Any other thing apart from this is a scam. So don't be led by anybody who asks you to join any form of platform, whether it's a WhatsApp platform or whatever it is. Just be concentrated on this page. This is a UNDP page and it is very official. every other thing apart from this, which comes through, is a scam. So please take note. So we're waiting for the results of who do you see as the key players in the area of innovation. We have business, local government, central government, donors, innovation hubs, and academic institutions. So out of these 6 pointers that's been put there, which of them do you see as the most important? Well, 79% of the pollsters think academic institutions are the most important key players in the area of innovation. It was followed by businesses. I thought that people were going to think or choose local government or central government, but it looks as if people don't think they play that much of a key role. They do the policies, which is very important as well, but the most important for people as we speak is the academic institutions. So that does it. And for our panelists and their presentations, it's now time for the questions and answers. I'll first of all pick the questions that we have from participants here to our panelists. And then I'm sure if we still have some time, we would allow people to ask questions on their own. So I'll pick the first 3 questions for our panelists, and I would allow you to answer all of them for us. All right. So the first question comes from Ebenezer. Ebenezer says, one step ahead because they have revolutionized education as we understand it. It is an open secret that any form of meaningful education should provide students with industry skills. It is not enough to just learn theories and write exams. It is important to match education with requisite skills. Perhaps it is time that we shift focus on relevant skills training than the obsession with degrees. That came from Daniel Amos. Oh no, that came from Ebenezer. I'm sure to support Dr. Gordon Kwesi's presentation. Daniel says, I fully testify how insightful foundations of design and entrepreneurship have been in my freshman year at Ashesi, from research all the way to building business. Bauer says, our institutions are not training us enough to be entrepreneurs. Why should, so this is a question. The first 2 were actually commentaries on the presentations, but this is a question. It says, our institutions are not training us enough to be entrepreneurs. Why should such an important aspect be a semester or 2 course? So this is to you, Dr. Gordon. It should be started right from the first year of senior high school and not just the tertiary. I'll pick the second question. Good afternoon. To me, the problem really has to do with tipping those who are academically good ahead of those who are into entrepreneurship or other technical skills. This goes a long way to make innovation and technical training unattractive to most people, because to some people, it only means you are dumb to go into entrepreneurship. So it's about pushing for a change of mindset. Doc, I'd allow you to pick the first question, which says it should be picked from, and Mr. Bachi, you can pick that as well, from the policy perspective, from the senior high school, as in the secondary level of education, and not the tertiary when they have gone through the basics and all, and now you come and begin teaching them entrepreneurship from the first year.
Right. So that's a very good point. And that's why at Ashesi, our entrepreneurship course that is mandatory for all first years is a 1-year entrepreneurship course. And, 1 year means it's broken down into 2 semesters for us. And so the first semester, it's all design sprints, right? Where your focus is on problems. You're solving problems, looking at how to use design thinking in exploring these problems. And then the second semester, it's all business simulations. So the concepts that you take from the first semester, you bring them into the second semester, we give the teams small amounts of money and they run business operations on those concepts. So they are testing, they're trying, they're doing buying, they're selling, they're doing marketing and all of those things. And the simulations are extremely important because what it does is that it breaks in the students' perception about how to start a business or how to tackle problems, right? It's a freeze point for a lot of students. As Chichi was saying, you can have some students, when people come up with ideas, they don't really know what to do next, right? And if you have these simulations and it breaks them in, it gives them that experience, then the next time they come up with something maybe more impactful, they know how to approach it. So it's extremely important. It is true that entrepreneurship should be more than one semester. In fact, the best entrepreneurship ideas don't come from the classroom at all, right? They are outside of the classroom. And so even at HSC, we have a lot of extracurricular activities that support students to work on ideas on their own time, within their own abilities over a period of time. So that's extremely important. Starting from high school is true if you have the resources and the structure, right? If the high school curriculum can support it, why not? In fact, we've seen a lot of high schools that have entrepreneurship programs. So it is indeed true that starting from high school is a good idea.
I mean, Mr. Boachi, we have core science for those of us in Ghana here, for everybody that enters a senior high school, but that's just a core. Should we look at more of an elective science for everybody, like Joshua is able to do proper analysis of the sciences? Should it be that for the basics as well?
Well, first of all, my own thinking is that entrepreneurship, even though you can train people to become entrepreneurs, it's something that is also part of mindset, and I think a lot of people through the surveys have mentioned that at some point in your life, you have almost developed your values and the way you do things, and changing them in the classroom becomes a little difficult. And that is why I think it's very, very important to start from basic school, teach them to take risks, not to be afraid of failing, and so on and so forth. And so I will not say that you have to start at a certain point. We have to get them started right from the beginning, so that by the time they get to the classroom, they are not afraid to ask questions. They are not. They are inquisitive, and they are able to take risks. Because I'm not an educationist, I won't be able to tell you specifically what happens in the classroom. But I'll be good. Yes, I think in general, you need to start from a very early age, so that by the time they develop their values and stuff, all these things are part of their mindset.
Now, just before I come to Joshua, you outlined in your presentation a number of activities being pursued by your ministry and government. Do you have a legal backing yet? Has it gone to Parliament yet? Has it been passed yet?
The
regulations,
policy, yes. The STI policy, as a policy, yes, has gone through cabinet and has received approval. It is going to need legislation, which is one of the pillars that I didn't mention, but legislation is what will make it sustainable, because in Ghana, when there's change of government, some policies are changed. And so, but if it's backed by legislation, then it will continue to be followed by successive governments. A lot of the things that we are doing, for example, the Ghana Innovation Agency that we are trying to create is going to require its own separate legislation. The STI fund, the technology or research and innovation fund that we are trying to set up, that is also going to require its own legislation. And the bill for that has already been developed, and it's now going to be presented to Parliament, for that legislation to take place.
Right. So let me move away a bit from the legal issues. Those are things for the government to come to. Let's now come to a bit of the practical issues. Joshua, someone is asking, amongst all the challenges that you enlisted, you still have been able to push through yourself as an innovator, as a young entrepreneur. Now, sharing your experience with us, but still telling us about the challenges one has to go through, especially in a part of the world. How can one push innovative ideas forward? Basically, in our pathway?
So I'll basically say the drive is all about passion, what you really love to do, because the challenges, they're always going to be there. Even if you have everything, there's still going to be challenges. But then if you have the passion, the desire to still make things happen, I believe things can happen. And that's what we're going through for the past 4 years in our team to take up. And myself too, I love computers from a very young age, back in the village. So I've been pursuing what I love, and nothing sort of stops me. There's no barrier, there's no obstacle when you're in love, right? Yeah. So basically, when you find your passion, you can really overcome everything. Even though it's tough everywhere. Even in Silicon Valley, we hear all the good stories, but it's still not easy to succeed in Silicon Valley. So I think the major drive is passion.
I agree. But in Silicon Valley, when you have the passion, there is a setup for you.
That's right.
So beyond the passion, here
I'm
in Ghana, beyond the passion.
Yeah, from my perspective, you asked me, despite all the challenges, how did you make it?
Yes.
Or how are you still going through it? So I'm sharing from my personal experience, despite all the challenges and obstacles, we still keep pushing through because we love what we do. Possibly that's an easy answer. If you love what you're doing, nothing really can stop it.
Right. I'll be coming to you, Dubia, about the peculiar challenges. I mean, you enlisted some of them in the northern region. So Dubia, I'll be coming to you, but someone says, this is Frederick Mugisha from UNDP. He says, Chinyewa, good point on making sure the policies work. I am beginning to think that the performances, that's about the performances of MMDAs. MMDAs means Metropolitan, Municipal, and District Assemblies. That forms the local government, and that's what was part of the polls. But people actually didn't think that that should be the case. People think it's the academic institutions. Dubia, you go to the north, and you see people, like you said, who don't have the interest at all, who are not given the training at all, who just grew up thinking that I'm growing and I'll be married off, and then that just ends it. How do you go about these people?
So what we have been doing actually is, the reason why people think that the best option for them is to get married is because they are not seeing, if we should say, we should mention about 5 women doing awesome coming from the north, you'd realize that we would have a problem mentioning a lot of names. So the people in the region or the people there they don't grow up seeing ladies like them representing them in such huge stages. So it's like, I have this thing where I say, I'm like, if you can't see it and you can't believe it, you can't be it. So these girls or these ladies, the females, are growing up not seeing and believing that they could be someone out there. They might see someone from a different region doing well, but you can't relate it to someone from your geographical, it gives you a reason to say, oh, it's because she's from this particular geographical area, not from here. The challenges here are different. But if they should see a lot of us from the north doing awesome, venturing into tech, telling them that they can also be like us, they would gradually be able to change in that perspective. So that's basically why we have this mentorship programs and training for them. We just let them understand that, look, you can do it. You just need to be encouraged and you just need to put your all in it and you can get there. So basically, it's just mentorship and giving them visibility, seeing people like them, representing them on bigger stages. Then they would have the passion and want to be like their fellow ladies from the north.
I'll be coming to, yes, you're clear on that, but I'll be coming to another point. But let me remind everyone that this program is being hosted by the UNDP, and it's obviously in collaboration with the UNFPA. If you just joined us on the platform, this is the 3rd edition of the Youth Impact Series hosted by UNDP and UNFPA. This particular edition of the series is focusing on expanding the youth innovation space. And so we have been looking at how all of us can join hands from the government's perspective, from individual innovators' perspectives, from entrepreneurs' perspective to expand the space. We all agree that it is well open, probably, per the poll that we saw the results of, but not very well open. And we think that the academic institutions should be involved. I'm going to ask why it should not be the duty of government from the perspectives that we have had. Academic institutions are doing their bit. Individuals like all of you presenters and panelists are doing your bit. But a conducive environment for our young ones to be able to grow, like you talk about Dubia in the North, that should be the activity of government. But let me read this point from one of our participants, who is Akwasi Saponis, LT Leaf Foundation. He says, building youth adult partnership is essential, an essential step towards creating an interactive relationship for youth innovations. So youth adult partnerships for Akwasi Sapon is the most essential step towards creating an interactive relationship for youth. This is a question coming up from someone. It says, what measures do we have in place to protect the intellectual properties of budding young innovators, as some are taking undue advantage of? I don't know if any of you have experienced this, Joshua particularly, or Chinyewa particularly, whether your idea, I mean, I have experienced it before in the field of the media, where you go to a TV station, speak to them about your idea, how you can impact on a particular community with a specific program. Before you realize those who have money are running with the program. They will tell you, oh, we are not interested. But at the end of it, you realize they are running with the program because they have the money to produce it. Do you come across any of that? I would start that with you, Chinyewa, before I come to Dubia and Joshua. And then I'll come to you, Mr. Oliver, with my final question.
Thank you so much, Chrissy, for that question. I mean, the case of intellectual property in Ghana, of course, across Africa, is one that I think we need to do a lot of work, you know, in order to make sure that young people's ideas are protected. I mean, of course, except you want to file a patent, which might take a while to complete the entire process, or a trademark that would cost you an arm and a leg. If you're looking to really protect that idea, it's very, very difficult. I mean, I can't count the multiple times that I've had my ideas, I wouldn't say stolen, I would say replicated, because you can't steal an idea once it's not yours. You can only do your bit, but it can never be executed as that of the person. So sometimes when people say, oh, he stole my idea, she stole my idea, I'm like, look at it, baby. Does that really look like your idea? I mean, I'm sure you could have done better, even, you know. So that is the kind of mindset that we need to wire, that look, even though it looks like someone has taken and replicated, you can also do your bit. I mean, it's a very serious challenge. We've had issues with design copyright. We've had issues with programs that we've designed and even shared with partners. I don't even want to mention some prominent companies. You send your proposals to them, they tell you they're interested, and then later on you realize that they thank you for sending your proposal and they're executing your project bit by bit, word for word. It's very, very devastating. But of course, what can you do? Like you mentioned, they have the money to run it. You are still trying to get there. So it's very challenging. And I think this is something that Mr. Oliver can consider in implementing laws that protect young people's ideas. Right. Because trust me, even if you go to the Registry General, there's no complaint desk there sitting for you to complain that something, even your company name, you'll be shocked. Your company name, when you go to the Registry General, someone has copied your company name and added some I there or some S in front, and you'll be marveled. No, it's serious, you'll be marveled. So it's very challenging and frustrating that young people are pushing every day, risking not just their resources, looking at, I mean, lots of, there are no really funds, there's no enabling environment, and at the end of the day, someone still steals your ideas. So it can help, I mean, it wouldn't help you develop or grow, but of course, we need to strengthen that policy. We need lawyers. I mean, people in law should also create, I know there are some organizations online in the US and stuff, I don't know of Ghana, that enable startup, because we can't afford proper law firms. I mean, you know, you can't have them review all your MOUs and all of that. But so we need law firms to come together. Yeah.
Let me listen to you, Dubia, especially from the northern part, what the challenge of
law firms
is. Right. I get that point. So Dubia, let me listen to you on that. I'll come to Joshua and round up with Mr. Boachi. Dubia, if you can hear me, kindly unmute, right, so you can hear us.
Thank you. I think I agree with what Chichi was saying when it comes to, please, am I answering the question on how to protect your...
On the intellectual property, yes.
Yes, okay. I agree with what Chichi was saying about nobody can replicate your idea as much as you can, but always when I used to go for hackathons and everything, I always try to ask the organizers the policy they have against like the ideas the youth come up with, because I'm very big on it. You can't, you try to put your effort into developing something, and if it gets stolen away, sometimes it really hurts us as a youth to even go further into coming up with good ideas, even though people have been able to do great like the Facebooks. But I think that the best thing for the youth to do is always make them sign if possible. It can be just a one pager. You sign a small contract on telling them that you can't replicate this idea, or you can't be able to produce this idea because I'm sharing it with you because I need you to help me and not for you to steal the idea. I've not heard of anything like people stealing people's ideas from them, not yet, but that's what I always try to do when I go for like an organization, like an organized hackathon or something. I always try to ask the organizers, is this what you do? Can I trust you guys to share my idea with you and nobody will steal it? So it's always, we check ourselves first before we give the responsibility. You can't go empty-handed and expect not to be shot in the war. You have to arm yourself. So
so thank you very much on that, Dubia. Joshua, I remember a time when I actually sent a marketing concept to a company, and the company some way somehow said they had a kind of an idea like that. But I knew from an insider that they had no paper, no single paper on anything like that. Before I realized 3-4 months later, their branding, everything was just the paper I wrote to them. Have you, in your field, as a young entrepreneur and as an innovation person, experienced this before? Your intellectual property.
I think intellectual property, right, it's one of the challenges that we have here that's not promoting innovation. Because I don't think would have Apple, Samsung, and the rest if they didn't get to own something they came up with themselves. So, and usually in this space, those who are busy innovating, thinking for the next big thing are not the people who have the money or have the business experience to take the idea from idea stage to product to industry. So there's kind of a big gap. So the guy who is busy trying to crack the head to come with the next big thing might be able to achieve that, but then he can't take it from there. And if there's no structures put in place to protect people like them, we wouldn't have the expected results. So it happens in my space, probably not me personally, but because I don't get stuck to one idea. So it comes when I think the time is right, I execute. If it's not, I move on. But then if we can put structures to protect people, I believe it will really help a lot.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Let me finally come to Mr. Boachi, and then the big question comes to you. All of us have either experienced it personally or heard of it or seen it one way or the other. Mr. Boachi, you are from government. Is there any regulation to protect budding talents, young talents that are coming up, people who want to become like Apple, like Microsoft, like the big names that we know, like Facebook owner and everybody else?
Yeah, first of all, I want to agree with all the speakers on this issue of intellectual property rights. It's a challenge, not just among the youth. Even if you go into the formal research institutions and research centers, they all encounter that. And that is why part of this policy of establishing this commercialization center has a component that addresses the management of intellectual property rights. We want to have a section or a department that provides support services for intellectual property rights management. You know, how to register your ideas and how to ensure that even if somebody has the resources and is able to exploit it, you still have rights to you know, the resources that accumulate out of that. And so, yes, government takes that very, very seriously. And part of everything that we are doing is to ensure that people's ideas are not stolen and that people are motivated to share their ideas, knowing very well that there's potential to steal it, but there are also facilities in place to protect such stealing from yielding any results from those who are stealing.
That's a good one. I think it's going to help us all if these things that we have spoken about are actually implemented. I'm going to introduce Dr. Frederick Mugisha, who is economic advisor to UNDP. But just before he's going to wrap it, let me acknowledge some more people here that I didn't introduce whilst we were at the beginning point. So if you can hear me, we have, as I introduced earlier, this program is being hosted by the UNDP and the UNFPA. The UNDP team is being led by Sylvia Senu, and I've actually been working with her behind the scenes whilst this program is going on. I had been working with her before the beginning of the program. She's been very instrumental in making sure that this is successful. And UNFPA team lead is also Ajua Neni. Thank you very much, team. And great communication support from both institutions by Mawina Ajedu. Emmanuel Adare is the one actually doing the hosting with his colleague Antonio Say. And then Erica Ahiama. There are a lot of people who have made this program very successful. The conversation does not or is not going to end here. Kindly visit our pages, UNDP page, UNFP page. We are going to continue these discussions. Make sure that you tap into the broad knowledge of these panelists and a lot more people that we are going to put up there to answer questions for us and everybody else that you can. Let's make sure that we build the youth of Ghana, we build the youth of Africa, we build the youth of the world through entrepreneurship and innovation, especially in this time of COVID. And as we are rounding up, don't forget that we're still talking about COVID. All these ideas that we are sharing is to help us empower ourselves in this period, become entrepreneurs and all that. So don't forget to wash your hands. Don't forget to wear your nose mask. Of course, we are by individual computers, so we didn't wear them, but anytime you step out, don't forget to wear them. Don't forget to wash your hands under running water with soap for at least 20 seconds, as recommended by the Ministry of Health and all the protocols that have been laid in place by the Ministry of Health. Please do well to follow them. Let me humbly now invite, Dr. Frederick Mugisha. Doc, if you are here, kindly wave, let's see you, wave, let's see you.
I'm here.
Right, thank you very much. So we'll hand over the platform to you now. Ladies and gentlemen, Doc will wrap and close us. Let's welcome Dr. Frederick Mugisha.
So thank you much, Kwesi. Thank you, Sylvia, for putting this together, and Moana. And thank you to the panelists. For me and for UNDP, this is an important issue that we are grappling with. What we want to contribute is to actually begin to define the innovation space. And as you have literally said, when the surveys came, we are talking about education. But there are many people who did not go to school, but they are also innovating. Those we are forgetting about them, even if we are not able to address those who have gone to school. And so our thinking is more to say that how do we make innovation part and parcel of the governance system? For example, in districts. And that conversation that we are having, we don't yet know all the answers. And all I can say is that we want to continue to have that engagement and begin to also define the space more broadly and make sure that the government at all levels but also the innovators themselves, and all the players come together. So as part of our next steps, we'll be coming back to you, not to give you the solutions, but to work with you to identify, understand the space, and then also begin to identify the solutions that we can work together on. And so with that, I also want to thank UNFPA and all the people who have attended, and thank you very much. Over to you, Kwasi.
Thank you very much. Dr. Frederick Mugisha is the economic advisor to UNDP. Thank you very much. Country or Deputy Resident Representative of UNDP, Zoki Hollanda. Thank you very much, Mr. Oliver Boachi. Thank you very much as well, Dr. Gordon Kwesi Adunja, Dubia Abdullah, Joshua Opukwajiman, and Chinyewa Okoro Onu, and everybody else that participated in this event this very afternoon. We are very grateful to you for your time, and especially the facilitators, as I mentioned earlier, Sylvia, UNFPA, everybody else that joined in. Make sure that the conversation doesn't end here. And we'll also make sure that we follow up with all the questions that came. Thank you very much for the questions as well. We'll make sure that we attend to all the questions, answer them, and then get back to you. My name is Kwesi Afriyie. I'm a broadcast journalist. I have been your host for this afternoon. For now, we'll close this session. Thank you all. All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. All unmute and say bye-bye.
All right. Yeah. So everybody can unmute and say bye-bye.
And say bye.
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 Bye. Bye.
Bye.
So we are now seeing Ajwa's face now.
She was hiding.
Yeah.
Oh, the behind us looks like it's noisy.
Please, can we get LinkedIn profiles of everybody so we can connect on LinkedIn?
Yes.
Exactly.
We should do that. Yeah. It's a pity. I don't think we had people putting in their names and their innovations, Sylvia. They have.
So
okay.
I asked for the emails, so some are putting in the emails.
Some are put it there, okay. Because I know UNESCO is also interested in innovation.